Welcome to the Build Business Acumen podcast, where we deliver practical knowledge and powerful guidance. Here is your futuristic host, Nathaniel Skula.
This is an episode that I recorded 2 years ago now for nextlevelpodcast.com. Ted and I have been connected for must be about 5 years now, and I've known him to be super supportive for everyone that he comes into contact with. He was involved with Yahoo in the early days.
I'm lucky. A lot of people know who I am. I've been involved in digital media since 1997. Really, I mean, that was 20 years ago now. So that's when I was just turning 40. And I got involved in digital by joining a company that was founded by a guy many of you are probably aware of or know who he is now. His name is Seth Godin. When I joined that company, I didn't know who Seth was, and most people did not. Seth had made a name for himself as a product manager and a product marketing manager with Atari, believe it or not. And then, Seth moved around, did a lot of things. He was always a writer, but he really made his name in the digital marketing space starting in the mid-90s, and he had a company called Yoyodyne, which we at least called the first online direct marketing company. And Seth was really developing his initial thinking about all of this back then. He was really out there testing, trying new things, and he very quickly discovered something that he had learned in his more traditional marketing career, that he felt that people were getting tired of of messaging being thrown at them, and that we were moving to a world where people were starting to look for the information they wanted. It was early. So we were really involved at Yoyodyne at trying to give that to them or guide them to the places where companies were offering products, talking about things. And remember, back then, e-commerce was not much more than a brochure online. And new media was really just old media in a new package. I believe that in the last, 5 to 7 years, we've really moved into the age of new media where everybody has a voice. It is the age of influence where anybody can build a brand, affect change, make a difference 24/7. It's all about dedication. I was having a talk with the daughter of a friend of mine today who's 27 looking to change careers. And I was just trying to explain to her the whole thing that it takes not just hard work, but it takes commitment and it takes time.
Yeah.
We tend to see the people who we can quote unquote overnight successes, and most often that overnight success has been in the works for many, many years. And we are in an age where you can be discovered very, very quickly. You can be of any age, you can make your first post, and if the right person follows it or shares it, you might go viral and all of a sudden have this huge audience overnight, but that's very rare, number one. Yeah. And number two is, even if that does happen, if you don't follow it up with engagement and connection and or good content, it won't matter. So, it is this age where we can all do it. And it's remarkable, Nat, because, you remember the days, if a mom was at home and didn't have a job and was a stay-at-home mom, there wasn't much more she could do than go to local meeting things with her kids, meet the mothers involved in that, maybe get involved in the PTA. And this isn't a put-down. This is just the way it was. Yeah. Now, the world is at everybody's fingertips. And people can they can work from home, they can work remotely, they can travel and work, they can be at home taking care of their kids and be working as a mom or a dad. And to me, that's the most remarkable thing. So, I progressed through this market. I joined in 97 at an early time. We were acquired by Yahoo the end of 1998. I got an opportunity to work with them in the early days. I made my way through Web 1.0. Ended up fast forwarding a bit at a brand that gave me the first true opportunity to move beyond the boundaries of traditional digital media and expand and build my brand in social media. It was called Elf Cosmetics, EyeslipsFace.com. That was 2008. And I was very lucky. I ended up at a brand that was family owned, that was small, that had no marketing budget, and was really desperate for any opportunity to get in front of people. So I didn't have to deal with legal teams and rules and regulations. Basically, let me do anything I wanted, as long as it built the brand, resulted in an audience which we knew at some point, because we had a great product, would result in sales. And at that time, I was hanging out with guys like Jeffrey Hazlett, who was one of the early marketing guys into social over at Tech, and Barry Judge, who was the CEO of Best Buy, doing some really early things. And it was funny because I was very lucky. They kind of, brought me in, even though I wasn't from their Fortune 500 world. And we would brainstorm together. And at the end of it, they'd be like, well, why don't you try it? Because I could do anything I wanted with no repercussions from my organization.
Lovely.
So I was just fortunate that I got to experiment and learn and realize how quickly you could try things in this market at a very early time. And then I love that, so I embraced it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Very interesting. Seth Godin was a big inspiration to me. I read the Icarus Deception, and I don't.
Oh, that's a great book.
Yeah. So for me, when I was at school, I had an English teacher, and he used to basically tell me that I would be cleaning toilets because I misbehaved in his class. So for about nearly 2 years, he said to me, I mean, he was quite a posh chap. He was a captain in I believe the army or whatever, and he would say, "You'll be cleaning bloody toilets, boy," and that's what he would say to me. And until I was 35 years old, so that's just gone, so 6 years ago, I didn't write anything that was vaguely interesting that anyone else would read. And thanks to Seth Godin's book, I actually started writing, and now I'm on a mission to do exactly what you just talked about. And I'm relentlessly writing one post every single day right now. And I just started that, it's incredible the results that I'm getting already.
It's impressive, and you have to be very focused. In an interview, Seth was asked, like, how have you managed over all these years to write a blog post every single day? I mean, he's been doing it forever. And his answer was, to do that, I have to give up doing other things. I don't take lunches. I don't do coffee. I don't go out for cocktails. He says, because if you're dedicated to something like that, whatever it happens to be, you have to find time for it. And, everybody thinks, like, he was saying, everybody thinks I sit down and it comes out and I write it and I move on. But it's not that easy. And I'm sure you've experienced that, getting that inspiration every day to write something.
Yeah.
For me, I don't write a blog every day, but I post. I create content every day in one form or another. Yeah. And I like to tell people that it really is incredibly easy once you're dedicated to it, because most people overcomplicate content.
Yeah, they overcomplicate everything, and it's completely ridiculous. I mean, I last night I thought, well, because I found yesterday morning quite a struggle to write my post. So then last night I was like, right, I know I'm going to write about something for tomorrow morning. And I had inspiration about my trip across the border in a very, very dangerous country. Crossed over the border in Latin America into a very dangerous. Well, it was safer when I crossed, but it was the most dangerous trip I've ever been on. And a lot of gangsters, a lot of dodgy stuff going on. The army show up and all sorts of stuff. And I wrote that last night, and I'm really happy with it. So I think sometimes you just got to broaden what you're talking about, right? I mean, personally, I'm kind of going wider. I'm actually just writing about everything that's vaguely interesting, and if people buy into that and find it fun, then they will hopefully come back and read more of my content.
Absolutely. Again, like I said, it gets overcomplicated because also there's a lot of people out there telling people how you have to write and what you have to do and the way you have to do it. And like you said, it doesn't always have to be on brand. Can be just that you say what you're thinking. It doesn't have to be on brand as the way people define a brand.
Yeah.
So, it also, again, you're focusing on writing a blog post every day, and that's amazing. But like when I'm talking about people that find it hard to do any kind of content, and I look at them and I say, just take a photo. That's content.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just put the photo up by itself. You can put the photo up with some commentary. You can put the photo up with a title. But that's content. Like, and again, it comes easier to some than others. For instance, I share a lot about my life. And because I live every day, I've got something to say. I mean, later today I'm going to post something that I was out buying new golf clubs earlier today. And that was a big deal because I grew up playing golf. I've come back and forth to it in my life, but I haven't bought golf clubs in 25 years.
Right.
And recently when I posted a picture because I was out with a friend from high school, and remember I'm 59, and I reconnected with a buddy of mine I hadn't seen in close to 40 years. A couple of years ago, and now I moved to Florida. He lives down here. We started spending some time together, and I posted a picture of us with our golf clubs in our hands, and two of my old buddies who I grew up with, who I grew up playing. The message from them was, "Dude, it's time for some new freaking clubs." How do you still hit those things? But it again, it isn't about, hey, Ted bought clubs. It's about, this is my life, and I'm finding I'm sharing something else about what I do, and I'm pursuing other interests, and it's just part of who I am. So also when I post 5 posts in a row about marketing, about how to find the best blog post, about how to influence customers, about my latest thing about return on relationship, that's not all it is. There's stuff in there so people go, well, Ted's really a person.
Yeah.
I most of the time when I write about companies, I write about them from personal experience. Like I very, very rarely will write about a company because either I'm paid for it or I just want to write about the company. It usually my interest gets sparked when I buy a product from them, when I interact or engage with them. I recently wrote a post that really called out Best Buy because I had an incredibly bad experience with them, which basically said to me, and it was I was like, you know what, I buy everything from Amazon, but I'm doing my house, and I bought a lot of stuff with Amazon, but I'm buying my TVs, I want to go in and talk to somebody. Never again. No,
really?
Never.
Oh dear. That's bad. That's bad. Because you can, oh dear, you can tell so many people about that as well with the digital world. I mean, you've got quite a big audience, haven't you, as well? Because you're an author, right, as well. How many books have you written so far?
I just published my 3rd.
Cool.
Which I haven't really, I don't really announce books. I kind of just put them out there.
Yeah.
I will post something about it. I just don't do the book launch thing. I don't engage all my friends to share it and write posts and write, things and tell everybody to buy it. I just kind of put it out there. But I've written 3 books. So my first one was Return on Relationship. And by the way, just so I don't get too much credit and people realize it's not as hard as you think, my books are not they're 120, 125 pages. They're easy reads. They're usually extensions on something I've been talking about in my blog posts and in my social posts.
Yeah. So
my first one, which is really the hub of everything I do, is called Return on Relationship. I published that in January 2013, and then in January 2015, I published an extension of that called How to Look People in the Eye Digitally.
Lovely. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's all about trying to do what we do when we're face to face, but do it digitally, because so many people think that all you have to do is click a button and make a friend, and they don't take time to personalize those things. I mean, truth be told, it's my version of Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People for the Digital Age.
Wow.
So it's taking all these practices that a lot of us know, and by the way, many of us ignore these days face to face. I always have to tell people to talk to each other when I'm at an event.
Yep.
But it takes those and puts it online about calling people by name, checking out their interests, knowing something about them. And then my next book, which is again comes off of both of those and is an extension, is called The Age of Influence: Selling to the Digitally Connected Customer. And, it addresses a lot of what we've talked about how anybody can build an audience, about all the things that go on with connecting with people, about what influence is, about influencers. And I try to talk about the different kinds, because my feeling is the most important influencers are everyday people.
Yes.
We all influence someone. And many of us influence many more people than we think. This is not just about this new idea of the guy that's got a lot of followers and puts up your picture. And I talk about, celebrities are one type of influencer, and they have their value in certain ways. Very few of us will buy certain things from influencers, but there's other things. If they wear certain sneakers or certain shoes or certain jewelry, it certainly has influence on how people think about it and whether it's cool or not. But my whole contention is that most of the things we buy we are not influenced by quote unquote influencers. We're influenced by people we really know, whether it's our neighbor, our friend, our family member, or maybe somebody that people call an influencer, but somebody like you or me that goes to a lot of events, that speaks, that people have shook our hand and looked us in the eye, and they feel like they have that connection rather than just a name that they've heard of or someone they follow on social media. And, I was writing something the other day, and I was writing about the thing that I bought because of my buddy and business partner, John Andrews. And then I started thinking about all the things I've bought recently because of John Andrews. All the Amazon, the Echo Tower, the Echo Dot, oh my God, Ted, you have to have the Echo Show. I went and got the Echo Show. I've got an espresso machine that I would have bought, but he bought it for me as a gift from my new home, him and his wife. But there are so many things that I buy because of him. And one of the reasons is he tends to try things quicker than I will. He's more of a first mover. I'm more, I get used to things I have. But, we all have people in our lives like that. I mean, my whole life, I think we all have this. And I think this is a big thing with men, a little bit more than women. But like I have my guys. When I'm buying a new car, there's one guy I call. I don't call 10. I take all the opinions and put them together. I call my buddy Michael because he knows everything about cars. When I buy a new laptop, I call another person because I trust them, because I know that they know about those kind of things. And I think we all have people like that. And to me, the thrust of this book is that's where influence is going. It's that you need to build relationships at scale with people in your communities, build communities, because a network is great. It gives you reach, but a community gives you power because people listen to each other in a community and they look out for each other.
I'm nodding away, actually. Interesting how you thought 120 pages was short. I just wrote a book. I was speaking to Brian Eisenberg, who I think you know, and he gave me some great advice. He said, look, just write 12 chapters or 10 chapters. I wrote a book of I think it's 65 pages, and that's it. And it's like a handbook, and
people read those quicker. They're more apt to pick them up.
Exactly. And you know what, right? Who the hell's got time to read 60,000 words now? No one's going to read 60,000 words. I could sit there for the next 2 years, write 60,000 words and not make any money out of my book. So, at the end of the day, for me, I want to make some money out of my book, and I want other people to recommend it to other people, and then, hopefully it will do well. I wrote it around personal branding. It's kind of a mostly about the personal branding and how you do it, and also it doesn't have any kind of tactics. There's no tactics of social media in there, because social, as well as I do, changes faster than you can blink. That's why I'm not even going to ask you these two questions that are at the top of the questions that I was going to ask you, because actually it's about strategic work, right? It's not about tactics.
Well, I think it's about how you engage and communicate, and what and also very important, what are you trying to accomplish? A lot of people leave that out. They don't think about what is it I'm looking to achieve when I'm doing these things. And you're right. Look, I could tell you what platforms I use mostly, but they're not very different than most people, because there are certain things that are prevalent right now and have most of the eyeballs. But a long time ago, I was at an event, and Gary Vaynerchuk was on the stage, and Jeffrey Hazlett, and, somebody said to Gary, it was when Gary was really into Twitter. As was I. And I still use Twitter a lot, but I'm saying it was Gary's primary platform. And someone said, hey, Gary, what if Twitter went away tomorrow? And he says, I don't care. It's about the people. It's not about the platform. The odds are in this day and age, they're going to go somewhere else. It's unlikely, unless the world changes dramatically, which would probably change a lot of other things for all of us, that this type of communication will go away in one format or another. So it's just a matter of where the people are, and what suits you best. It's not just this factors I think that's most important when you're figuring out what platform or platforms you use. It's where the eyeballs are. it's what you're most comfortable with. And then it's where the people that you're looking to reach are. So, you might hate Snapchat, but if all the people that you're looking to reach are there and they're not on the other platforms you're on, then you're clearly wasting your time. But the other side of it is, for a company, it's a little bit different because a company can hire people that are comfortable on platforms. But for a personal branding, like you were talking, a lot of it has to do with what you like doing the most, where you're most comfortable. Do you like Twitter the best? Do you like the way people engage on Facebook? Is LinkedIn more for you because you're more about, particular business type business type content and you like questions that are more business related versus personal, or is it all of them? I mean, I'm on a lot of different platforms. Basically in the last few months, I've walked away from Snapchat. I have no interest at the moment.
Me too. It's awful.
And that doesn't mean I won't later. I mean, when I first got on Snapchat, I didn't love it and I kind of backed away. Mm-hmm. And then Snapchat picked up a lot of eyeballs and a lot of people were using it and I wanted to understand it. So I jumped in and I used it aggressively because I wanted to understand, and I pretty much understand how to use it now. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of lost interest. I found that my audience wasn't really there. Number one. Number two is, I didn't want to be talking to people every day and telling them what I'm doing and making a videotape of. And more importantly, I felt that Instagram, started offering everything they were offering, and it was a place I already had a much bigger audience, and I was much happier being there. They gave me a little bit more time on my shoot, on each clip, and so right now, but even on Instagram stories, I use it periodically. I use it every few days. I might put up one or two a day. I'm not doing what I was doing for a while on Snapchat, which was basically cataloging my entire day. Again, I want to understand it. And I'm also not saying other people shouldn't do that. Number one is, if you're really comfortable doing that and you enjoy it, that's one reason to do anything.
Exactly.
Okay? No matter what.
Yeah.
And then what I love about Snapchat and Instagram stories is that you can download the content and use it elsewhere. So I build content on Snapchat and Instagram, and I use Instagram stories, and I publish it on Facebook, on Twitter, on other parts of Instagram, on a regular part of Instagram, like in different ways. Mm-hmm. So It's all about what works for you, and it's so easy to experiment and figure it out. Yeah. Just be careful about listening to the people that say this is the way you have to do it. Yeah. If it's working for you, one of the lines I like to say about content is I MC a lot of events, especially through Brand Innovators, and there are a lot of them that are about content. And I hear a lot of the quote-unquote experts, gurus, thought leaders, people telling people this is the best content. The best content is. And my answer to that is the best content is the content that helps you achieve the goals you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. I can't argue with that at all. You've answered most of my questions already, actually. I think, I agree with you 100% on there. And the more passionate you are about using something and communicating in the way that you want to communicate, the better for the audience, right? Because that passion and positivity is going to rub off onto them, isn't it?
Right, and it depends on who you are. Look, I'm all about engagement and interaction, and I'm trying to get people to talk to me, and I encourage that, and I love when conversations really get started. But it doesn't have to be about that for you. I mean, what I believe is, if you're a brand that sells consumers or sells to other brands, mm-hmm. and you're on social and you're not replying to their questions or their comments, that I think is a critical error, because it is a social platform. You are giving people it would be like people calling you on the phone and you never calling them back as a business. Yeah. Whether it's a customer service line or a sales line or just calling in to have a conversation with somebody. So I do think there is a necessity for brands that go on these platforms to be prepared to communicate And personally, I think their biggest value comes from that. But that remains to be seen for each individual brand. I mean, somebody can prove out to me that it's great for them to be there, but engaging and interacting doesn't really help them other than when people specifically ask them questions. I get that. But from a personal view, again, I take a lot of calls from friends and young people and people who are just trying to change careers. And I was talking to a woman today, very, very bright, and we were talking about what she's passionate about, which is health and wellness and good eating. And she's a social worker who's looking to change her career. She's not happy, working in these places, and she loves marketing. She's done a lot of it for herself, and she's built an Instagram following. And we were talking about the difference between people that build large followings. And some of them, it's because they engage so much. And they can be engaging about, like she would say, some of these people engage about stupid, silly things. But number one, I was trying to make a point that, number one, people are lonely, and they love having conversations.
Totally.
Number two is people love being recognized. And I tell this to big brands all the time when their internal experts tell me, oh, nobody cares if we like their post. Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah.
And I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of women, and these women love nothing better than being someone saying hello to them from a brand, or liking their post, or sharing something that they created. So that she was saying about how when people do that, she sees a lot of people's followings blowing up that way. And then another way is people that are just incredible, like, creators. And they don't necessarily have to engage. If they're amazing photographers, or if they have a unique perspective on a sport or on some kind of activity, and they publish amazing photos, you can also build a very large following doing that, if people feel a connection to what you're publishing.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's very funny, actually, how you can you remember when you finished your first book and how you felt that it was actually like a sculpture? That's how I felt. I only just finished it like 2 weeks ago, and I'm just getting the cover designed. But when I finished writing it, I kind of felt that it was like an artist, and how an artist would have felt when he'd have maybe made some sort of a sculpture or painted a picture or something. So I think as long as you put in the effort and it gives you a good feeling, then there's going to be people who are going to like it and people who aren't going to like it, right?
And by the way, if they don't and you do, who cares?
Exactly.
Unless the only reason you were creating it was to get that result. But if you were writing it for yourself, like, you mentioned how proud you were. It was like, for me, I never thought I'd ever write a book. I mean, I am, a frustrated writer because I have all these titles and all these things I say, but I don't write that way. I mean, when I started my blog, and the guy who was a mentor who told me I had to start, like, he saw my social presence starting to blow up in the early days, he goes, you have to start a blog. And I'm like, oh no, don't tell me that. I finally found this platform called Twitter where I could write one sentence and people go, oh my God, that's amazing. And now you're telling me I've got to put 2 sentences together and more. And he's like, just start doing it, write a paragraph, write a sentence. Little by little it'll come to you. But I never thought I'd write a book. And people for a couple of years were telling me, you have to write Return on Relationship. You have to write Return on Relationship. I've been talking about it since 2009 and writing blog posts about it 4 years before the book came out. And I'd say, no, I don't write books. I don't write that way. And finally, a woman named Kathleen Rose is the one who said, you have to write this book and I'm going to help you write it. And I've written a few books, and I will take your content, I will build the table of contents, I will build an outline, I will outline the chapters, I will get you somebody to take what you've written and turn it into readable form in a book. And, now I've done 3, and I've been working with the same editor since. Her name is April Pryor. She's amazing.
Cool.
And she takes all of my crap that I throw together in like a box full of receipts, like those people that say receipts in a box instead of categorizing them.
Yep.
And she makes it work as a book.
Yeah.
Because I don't write that way. So yes, I feel that same pride. It's one of the reasons I don't even tell people to buy it. My books are written for 2 primary reasons. Number one is I write a lot about topics and blog posts and social posts, and I start using certain terms like return on relationship, and by writing the book, I took ownership of the term.
Yeah.
So I own that term as far as marketing and business goes forever. I don't have, no matter what anybody says, no matter what they do,
Yeah.
I wrote it, I own it. When you Google it, that's what comes up.
Yeah.
When I thought I had coined the term return on relationship because I hadn't found it anywhere. I started using it, but when I went to write the book, I did a little more research, as you should, and I discovered that in 2002, a white paper, 2001 or 2002, a white paper was written by a division of Deloitte called Return on Relationship. And it was similar to what I was writing about. It was very much in line with that. So that's why I changed everything I have to that I started using and evangelizing the term. Nothing that you read from me says I coined the term. If you ever see that, it's somebody that decided I did that and I gave up on trying to explain to everybody. Because in all my literature, everything where there's something about return relationship, it says started using and evangelizing. But how to look people in the eye digitally, that term I coined. Yeah. And again, cool. By writing the book, I took ownership of it. Look, the age of influence, I certainly didn't coin that term, but I started using it. Very few people were using it. I started using it a lot in speaking engagements, in almost every presentation I gave. So now that I've written the book, when someone goes to write the book, I wrote it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was actually reading about intrapreneurs the other day because I'm kind of trying to give people content that they need around personal branding for each segment of the market. Yeah. So I was thinking, right, so intrapreneurs, yeah? And I said to Garen, I wrote this article, Garen, about intrapreneurs. He says, I've never even heard of one. So I wrote an article about it, and I'm very careful when I write an article about a word that I don't think people understand, I actually give them the definition of the word. And what I like about what you just said is return on relationship. It's obvious, yeah. It's an obvious meaning, right? And the problem I have with these words generally, no one knows what they mean.
No, absolutely. And then the other thing is when you write books, when people hire speakers, they love to say, and his new book, blah blah blah. It just makes them feel good.
Yeah.
They like to put it on their agendas. So, those are kind of the things that have inspired me to do these things. By the way, I have a fourth book coming out that I'm writing with my business partner, John Andrews.
Cool.
And I will tell you that his name will lead it. Number one is he's never written a book. So naturally, I would give him the top billing. But truth be told, beyond that, he deserves the top billing because the book is called Retail Relevancy. And John is what we call a retail geek. Cool. Like he lives for retail. He goes to stores just because he wants to experience the shopping experience at a particular place or through an e-commerce site or something. And John worked at Walmart for a number of years and he's been at a lot of places. So we're working on that book. We're hoping to have it out by next year at some point.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I'd love it if you could read my book for me and give me a one-liner. What do you think of it? If you have time.
I'll be happy to. Can I buy it on Amazon?
Not yet. I was gonna send you a PDF as long as you promise not to tell anybody. Or give it to anyone.
That's very nice. I'd be happy to buy it, but apparently I can't, right?
Not yet, but it'll be ready in a couple of weeks. But I was literally gonna send you a PDF so you could just have a look at
it. Feel free.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's called Cheers to You, and Brian actually helped me come up with the name for it because I was thinking about this really long name for the book, and he said, "What are you doing? You can't have a long name." And so it kind of just he helped me come up with it, which I'm quite amazed actually. So he's reading it at the moment. I'm hoping he likes it, so he's going to write me a foreword with some luck.
He's a good guy.
He's very cool. Very friendly, very open to helping other people. And I think that kind of seems to flow through the successful people that I sort of speak to, you included. You're very helpful to people who may be just starting out. And I think it's kind of like giving back, isn't it?
No, look, first of all, I like to do for people. I always have. I learned it from my dad. My dad was the guy that shoveled people's walks when it snowed. He was the guy that we'd pull over on the side of the road and he'd make me get out and put somebody's garbage cans back up on their curb if they were in the street. And I just grew up watching that. Mm-hmm. I saw, more important than the way it made other people happy, because sometimes it didn't. My dad also liked to straighten out their front yards the way he liked to see it. But to him, that was doing something nice. But I saw the joy he got from it. And, there was a point I was about to make earlier, and I think I got sidetracked. And I related, I don't know if you've ever seen my video about the dad that doesn't quit, and about my fight to keep my daughters in my life. But one of the things I say there, which I've really learned to live by, especially for my daughters, but even other things, is that no one can take away what you have inside of you. So my ex-wife, and most people that follow me know this story. You can check it out. It's easy enough to find. I had to fight to keep my daughters in my life. It went very public in 2010 when I won a court case, and my ex was the first woman in the United States to be held in contempt of court and convicted of child alienation.
Wow.
And I still fight. This is now 7 years later. My daughters are 20 and 22, and I'm still fighting the battle. Because their mom is a very, very big influence on them, and she's an important part of their life naturally, as she should be. Yeah. But so I don't get to spend nearly as much time with my daughters as I would like. My older daughter especially has been very, very difficult. But what I always have is no one can ever take away my love for them. No one can ever take away the memories I have of the time we spent together when they were young. So no matter what happens, and this, I'll always have that. So yes, I have hope and I have prayers, and people tell me that my daughters will come back and come around at a certain point, and I stay in their life now by being present as much as I can, and I'm always there whenever they need me. I'm going to see my younger daughter in Washington, D.C. next Friday. But more importantly, even if that were to change, even if they were to put up the wall and say, I'm not seeing you anymore, they can never take away how I feel. And I will never let that be overcome by anger or resentfulness or anything like that. And I take that into other things, whether it's personal, business people or friends. No one can ever take away. If you do good for others, if you live by the be good to people, just be nice, return relationship kind of mantra, and the way I end all that is that there's no let up in life, and there's no let up on those kind of things, you will always have that you did that. You will always feel good about it. You will always know that no matter whether they accepted it right, or they're still your friend, or they return the favor, it doesn't matter. So like what my dad taught me was do for others without expectation of anything directly in return. And guess what? You will get that return. It might not come from that person, but the old line, what goes around comes around. When you do good for others, good finds its way to you. I really, really believe that, and I've lived it.
Yeah, I really believe that as well, and I feel your pain on the child alienation thing. It's something that it's not something I want to talk about, but I don't see very much in my daughter, and I'm trying to kind of fix that. And they can't take away those memories, though, can they? And
they can't take away memories, and they can't take away, the fact that, again, as long as you don't have like I've lowered my expectations tremendously. So I might not, but I'm there. I show up for things. Yeah. I let them know I'm always available. I send them notes, even though I don't get anything back sometimes. It doesn't matter, because, and even though some people could say, hey, she's probably not even reading it. You know what? She might not read it, but she sees my name pop up on her text or on her thing, and she knows there's Dad again. And oh my God, he still hasn't given up. And to me, when you do that, it's going to come back to you. And that's where my hashtag This Dad Won't Quit comes from. Yeah. And my video, it's a big part of who I am.
Wow. So have you written a book around that?
Because it's about the struggle. It's not about the result.
Yeah.
It's about the commitment to what it is. So that's something that's out there, and who knows, you might see it one day.
I'm sure.
I have about five different names already for it. So.
Wow, cool. Yeah, I mean, for me, I worked with my dad for 7 years, and it was very difficult working in a family business. But I never really spent any time with him when I was growing up, or very little. And now he's like 84 years old, and he helped me to edit my book, and he absolutely loves it. He loved my book, and he used to he had about 2,500 students that he used to teach executives on corporate planning in London, and he used to interview a lot of people for MIT, because he's actually from Connecticut, my dad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And and actually, what's interesting is I never really had a very strong relationship with him until probably a year ago or 6 months ago, So and and I'm 41 now, and he's 84, so, or 85. So it's a funny thing, isn't it? Relationships, and sooner or later they definitely rebuild themselves, no doubt in my mind, with that. But it's been a real joy talking with you, Ted, and
Uh,
yeah.
I've really enjoyed this too, Nat. Thank you very much for making the time. I'd love to do it again sometime. I hope we can meet face to face at some point. Now, are you in Spain?
I'm actually in England at the moment, but I'm planning on going back to Spain probably November, I think, December, by the time I get my act together. But it could be next year. It all depends on what happens with my book and the new clients that I'm working with, and sort of stuff like this, really. So you know how it is, right?
Yeah, I do. So listen, I'd love to chat with you again. I'd love to meet face to face. I will tell you that part of what I've done down here in Florida is I have one apartment I live in, and I have a full 1-bedroom guest apartment right next to my apartment in the same small little building overlooking the Intracoastal Waterway, and I'm a quarter mile from the beach. If ever you have the inclination that you want to get some sun and come down for a few days or a week, my home is yours.
Oh wow, that is absolutely fantastic. I really really appreciate that, and yeah, I would love to meet face to face, because we have a lot of fun, and it'll be really really nice. I'd love to visit Florida as well. So yeah, I will. I'll bear that in mind. That'll be absolutely fantastic.
And if I find myself over your way, maybe we can connect over there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. When I get back to Spain, that would be perfect. I'll definitely have some space for you.
Where are you in Spain?
Well, I was in Javia, near Alicante, which is eastern Spain.
Well, listen, I apologize. I've got to run. I've got to get something out to somebody before it's too late.
No worries.
So,
could you just tell everybody how they find you?
if, Oh, sure. Well, I'm easy to find. Just Google Ted Rubin. I'm probably the first pages. That's TEDRUBIN, or I'm at Ted Rubin on Twitter, Ted Rubin on Facebook, Ted Rubin on Instagram, Ted Rubin at Gmail. And my phone number is 516-270-5511. Nobody calls, so I can give out my number anytime, anywhere.
Thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe, and wherever you prefer, share with your friends. And if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen.